My fiancée laughed in my face when I told her I'd one day be successful, then left me for a rich guy. She said, "You're not that guy." But 5 years later, I was the keynote speaker at her husband's bankruptcy hearing. She laughed, not nervously, not like I'd just made a bad joke. She laughed the way someone laughs when they hear a toddler say they're going to be an astronaut, full of amusement, pity, and the quiet certainty that it'll never happen. That laugh still echoes in my head sometimes. All I'd said was, one day, I'll build something that matters. I'll be the one people listen to. And Samantha, my fiancée at the time, nearly spit out her wine. You? Come on, babe. You can barely afford a new phone charger. You're not exactly Elon Musk. That was the last night I looked at her the same way. Samantha and I were engaged, living in a tiny one-bedroom with paper-thin walls and a bathroom door that didn't fully close. I was building a finance app from the ground up. No funding, no co-founder, just caffeine and grit. She worked in PR for luxury brands. Think designer bags, launch parties, martini lunches, the whole curated aesthetic. At first, she liked dating the ambitious startup guy. It was quirky, edgy, romantic in a starving artist way. But after a couple years of watching me come home in the same hoodie, celebrating milestones that didn't come with money, I saw it in her eyes. She didn't buy in anymore. Still, that night, hearing her actually laugh at the future I'd poured myself into, that broke something. And the worst part? She didn't even apologize. She just rolled her eyes and said, "You're sweet, but let's be realistic." A week later, I came home to find half the apartment cleaned out. Her clothes gone. Her desk empty. Even the cheap mugs we got from that Christmas market vanished. She left a note. Not even a real one. Just a sticky note on the fridge that said, "You're going to be fine. This life just isn't for me." No goodbye. No explanation. A few days later, I saw the Instagram post. Samantha in a convertible, hair blowing in the wind, champagne in hand. Passenger seat, Trevor Daniels, local celebrity entrepreneur, family money, real estate empire, perfect teeth. A guy who wore sunglasses indoors because he thought it made him look important. Her caption? Leveling up. People love to give advice when you've been publicly humiliated. Focus on yourself. She was never worth it. Take the high road. But that night, I didn't want advice. I wanted silence. I wanted to sit in the dark with my crappy laptop and the hum of the fridge and let the anger settle into something sharp enough to carry me forward. I stopped talking to most people. I didn't go out. I didn't update anyone. I poured myself into that app like it was the only thing keeping me alive, and maybe, in a way, it was. There were nights I coded until my fingers cramped and my vision blurred. Mornings I woke up on the floor next to half-eaten takeout, wondering when I last spoke out loud. But I kept going, because every time I wanted to quit, I remembered her laugh. I don't know exactly when things turned. Maybe it was the first time someone paid for the premium version. Maybe it was when a blog called it the future of small business finance. Maybe it was when I got invited to a private VC dinner and nobody asked me what college I went to. All I know is, 5 years later, I had my own company. We had offices in 3 cities. I wasn't rich, but I was more than fine. My team called me founder. Investors called me visionary. And Samantha, well, I hadn't thought about her in a while. Until the day I got an email inviting me to be the keynote speaker at a national conference on business ethics and financial disruption. And there it was, in the attached schedule. Day 3, Corporate Collapse Case Study, Daniels Holdings. Trevor's company. The one that just made headlines for defaulting on over $40 million in commercial debt. The one under federal investigation for fraudulent investor reports. And the cherry on top? His wife, Samantha, was listed as a co-director of brand strategy, meaning her name was on the filings, meaning she'd be there, sitting across the room from me, watching me take the stage. The same guy she laughed out of her life like a bad joke. And now? Now I was the closing speaker at her husband's bankruptcy hearing. You don't really feel rock bottom when you hit it. You don't wake up one day and say, "Ah yes, this is my personal low point." It creeps in slowly. One missed paycheck at a time. One apology to your landlord. One skipped dinner. One ignored call from your mom. And then suddenly you're sitting in the dark, wrapped in a hoodie that hasn't been washed in weeks, eating canned beans with a fork because your only spoon broke in the sink and you couldn't afford a new one. That was me, 6 months after Samantha left. The app, at the time called Ledgerlight, had 100 users. Maybe. All small-time freelancers and Etsy shop owners. I was chasing down bugs, trying to patch code on a laptop that overheated if you opened 2 tabs at once. There was no investor interest. I couldn't afford a developer. I was watching YouTube tutorials at 2 a.m. just to duct tape this thing together. Meanwhile, Samantha and Trevor were showing up on local news segments. He was being praised for revitalizing urban housing. She was quoted in some online article talking about strategic positioning and lifestyle storytelling. I watched the clip. She was wearing a silk blouse I knew I couldn't even afford to dry clean. They were golden, glossy, shiny enough to make people believe in their fairy tale. And me? I was still behind a cracked screen, chasing a dream that no longer felt romantic, just pathetic. There were nights I hated her, not just for leaving, but for laughing, for mocking something she knew meant everything to me, for making me feel like a little boy with a fantasy instead of a man building a future. And then, when the hate cooled down, the silence came. Months of silence. No texts, no calls, no social media. Samantha vanished like I'd never existed. I could have moved on. Should have. But I didn't. I couldn't. Instead, I made a decision. If no one else believes in me, I'll do it alone. And one day, I'll be so big, people like her will feel small just standing next to me. I wrote that sentence on a sticky note and slapped it on my bathroom mirror. It stayed there for years. Things didn't get better overnight. That's the part people like to skip when they tell these stories. There wasn't some magical moment where an investor called me out of the blue and said, "We believe in you." What happened was this. A small bakery in Austin used my app. They were drowning in bad loans. They used my algorithm to restructure their payment plan and cut their losses by 40%. The owner sent me an email, just a few lines, that said, "Your app saved my business." I was days away from shutting down. Thank you. I cried when I read it. Not like a movie tear gliding down the cheek. Full on, shoulders shaking, ugly sobbing. Because for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, all this pain wasn't pointless. From there, the growth was slow but real. The app spread through word of mouth. I started a blog, then a podcast. I got interviews on niche finance channels. One day, a micro-influencer on TikTok made a video about how LedgerLite helped her stop getting scammed by sketchy lenders. That video got over 700,000 views. We had 11,000 signups in 2 days. I nearly passed out from shock. And then the emails started coming. Advisors, mentors, a VC group from Seattle who wanted to chat. I'd been cold emailing them for years, and suddenly, they were in my inbox. By year 3, I had my first funding round for $100,000. Year 4, we had a full-time dev team, a marketing consultant, and 3 interns. Year 5, I bought an office. Not a WeWork space, not a rented cubicle, a real 3-story building with glass walls and my company's logo on the damn door. I hadn't thought about Samantha in a long time. Not seriously. Every now and then, someone would mention her name, or I'd hear Trevor Daniels was doing some overpriced condo project downtown, but I didn't care. Until one day, I checked my company's Instagram and saw something strange. A like. Just a single like on an old post announcing our funding milestone. From her. I clicked through. Her profile was private, but the bio was new. Brand strategist. Believer in second chances. Hilarious. I ignored it. Until the second like. Then the DM. Just one line. Proud of you. I always knew you'd make it. I stared at the screen for a long time. Because no, you didn't. You laughed. You walked away. You chose someone already at the finish line and left me bleeding on the track. You didn't believe in me. But now? Now you wanted to rewrite the past like I'd been some underdog you quietly rooted for in the background? No, not a chance. And then came the conference invitation. An email from a national financial ethics summit. We'd love for you to be our closing keynote speaker. I almost said no, until I scrolled down to see who else would be attending. Trevor Daniels, CEO of Daniels Holdings, speaking on housing innovation and responsible capital. But there was a note under his name in the docket. Pending. Subject of ongoing federal investigation. I opened a new tab and typed Daniels Holdings bankruptcy. 37 lawsuits. Loan fraud. Fake renovation permits. Eviction violations. It was all unraveling. And Samantha? Still listed as co-director of brand strategy. She wasn't watching from the sidelines anymore. She was standing on the same collapsing stage. That was when it hit me. She was going to see me speak. Not as the broke ex who begged her to believe in a future she thought was fantasy. but as the man who built something real. The man she told, let's be realistic, right before she vanished into a convertible. Now I was the closing act, and the next chapter was mine to write. The first time I saw her again, I didn't recognize her right away. I was at a startup mixer 2 weeks before the conference. One of those stuffy hotel rooftop events where everyone talks like they're pitching something, even when they're just ordering a drink. She was standing by the open bar, glass of rose in hand, talking to a guy in finance bro uniform. Blazer, 2 white teeth, insecure watch. Her voice. That was the first thing I noticed. That polished, PR-perfect voice I used to hear in the morning while she rehearsed lines for meetings. She was saying something about narrative control and reclaiming brand trust. I turned. Froze. Samantha. She looked tired. Not in the physical sense. She still had the glow, the hair, the heels that cost more than my rent used to be. But the shine was off. Her smile was tighter. Her eyes scanned the room too often. And the way she gripped her drink, like it was holding her up. I guess I was staring because she caught my eye, and the second she did, something flickered across her face. Panic, guilt, hope. She walked toward me like someone testing a frozen lake. Wow, she said, smiling too hard. I thought that was you. I didn't answer right away. I was waiting to see how she'd play it. She went with casual. You look different. You don't, I said. That wiped the smile off her face for a second. We did the awkward catch-up routine, like we were 2 old co-workers who ran into each other at a CVS. She told me she was consulting now, doing a lot of internal rebranding for Daniels Holdings. Translation, putting out PR fires while the whole company burned down. Then she said it. I've been following your work. I'm really proud of you. Proud. Like she was my coach. Like she had anything to do with where I was now. I almost said something cruel. Instead, I looked her right in the eyes and asked, what's it like? Watching something fall apart from the inside. Her smile faltered. It's complicated. I nodded. Yeah. Usually is when you sell a dream that wasn't yours to build. She didn't say anything for a few seconds. Just stared into her glass like the answers might be floating in the wine. Then she tried again. I was young, she said softly. And scared. And honestly, I didn't think you'd actually do it. There it was. The honesty. The tiny, accidental truth people let slip when their guard is down. I mean, you had nothing, she continued. No money, no support. I didn't think it was realistic to wait around forever. I thought Trevor was. I don't know. The safer choice. I laughed, just once, dry and low. You didn't choose safe. You chose easy. There's a difference. She nodded, but I could tell she hated that I'd said it. I regret how I handled it, she whispered. I really do. I let the silence stretch between us. Then I said, so do I. She looked up. I added, I regret ever thinking your belief mattered. That ended the conversation. She excused herself quickly, said something about needing to find someone. Probably that finance bro with the fragile Rolex. I didn't watch her go. I just turned back to the window and looked out over the city, the same city I used to feel invisible in. Now it was mine. 2 days later, I got a text. Unknown number. Just one message. Please don't mention me in your speech. No name. No greeting. No signature. But I knew. I didn't respond. Because if she thought this was about her, she never understood me at all. The night before the conference, I checked into the hotel where it was being hosted. A massive place downtown with marble floors and a chandelier big enough to crush a Prius. In the elevator, I ran into a former investor who once turned me down. He smiled like we were best friends. You proved me wrong, he said. Gotta respect that. I didn't even need to respond. The suit, the lanyard, the keynote badge, it all spoke for me. Back in my room, I poured myself a drink and opened my speech draft. It didn't mention Samantha once. It didn't have to, because when I walked on that stage tomorrow, every word would be for the people who were told they weren't enough, who were laughed at, left behind, counted out. And if Samantha was in the audience, all the better. She'd know. I didn't sleep the night before the keynote. Not because I was nervous. I've pitched to investors while running a fever. I've done live Q&As with tech bros trying to trip me up on valuation models. I've launched updates mid-crash with thousands of users screaming in my inbox. No, this wasn't nerves. This was focus. This was years of silence, discipline, humiliation, and rebuilding all sharpening into one moment. The conference ballroom was a cathedral of wealth and ego, floor-to-ceiling windows, designer chairs, cold brew on tap, and people wearing name badges with titles longer than their job descriptions. I kept it simple. Black suit, no tie, company pin on my lapel. Clean, sharp, unbothered. I walked through the crowd and felt the shift, heads turning, hands reaching for a shake. 5 years ago, no one would have noticed me in that room. Now, I was the reason half of them showed up early. My speech was scheduled for noon. Trevor's hearing was at 2. You could feel the tension in the air. People were whispering. Half the attendees were here for the keynote. The other half wanted to see a millionaire publicly unravel. Some were here for both. 10 minutes before I went on, I caught a glimpse of her. Samantha, back row, hair tied back, minimal makeup, nervous hands fidgeting with her bracelet like she was trying to stay invisible. But she wasn't. Not to me. She looked like someone watching a bomb she forgot she planted. They introduced me with words like visionary, innovator, disruptor. I tuned it out. I stepped up to the mic, looked out at the sea of faces, and started talking. Not pitching, not performing, just talking. My name is Noah Carter, I said. And 5 years ago, I had nothing but a broken laptop, a ridiculous dream, and a partner who told me to be realistic. A few people chuckled. I didn't smile. I was told that people like me don't build real companies. That if I couldn't show a profit, I wasn't worth investing in. That ambition without a bank account was just noise. I paused, then looked directly at Samantha. She flinched. I wasn't angry. I was focused. Because the truth is, when someone laughs at your dream, you've got 2 choices: believe them or prove them wrong. Silence. Then a slow, rising clap from the front row. I spoke about the app, about the bakery in Austin, about the thousands of users we helped crawl out from under-crushing, crooked loans. I told them how tech shouldn't be about domination. It should be about access, survival, fairness. I didn't name Trevor. I didn't need to. I ended with this. Success isn't about revenge. It's about clarity, about seeing who you were before the world tried to shrink you. And remembering, the only person who needs to believe in you is you. Applause. Standing ovation. People filming. Hands shaking mine before I could even leave the stage. And Samantha? She was gone. But not for long. I walked into the hearing chamber an hour later. Smaller room. Colder. Cameras. Legal teams. Media reps. And Trevor Daniels in a $1,000 suit that couldn't hide the sweat on his forehead. He looked nothing like the man from the magazines. His jaw was clenched. His tie was loose. His voice, when he tried to explain how his company wasn't technically defrauding investors, cracked. Samantha sat behind him, eyes forward, hands folded, like she wasn't sure if she was there as support or collateral. And me? I was on the witness list. I wasn't testifying, but I was there as an expert observer. A courtesy seat. One of the panelists had invited me personally. When the judge asked for input on the ethical violations of Daniels Holdings' lending practices, the moderator turned to me. Mr. Carter, as someone who built an app to combat this exact type of financial exploitation, any thoughts? I leaned forward. Only said one sentence. I think this is what happens when you sell trust you never earned. Even Trevor looked at me. He knew who I was. He remembered. When the hearing ended, Trevor had to sit through a list of charges that could tie him up in court for years. And Samantha? She followed me out of the building. Called my name like it still meant something. Noah. Wait. I turned, just enough to make her think I might stop. I didn't. She caught up. Her voice was low, frantic. You were incredible, okay? That speech, the way they looked at you. I cut her off. Calm. Cold. Final. I didn't do this to make you regret leaving. She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. I did it because I knew one day I'd walk into a room and you wouldn't belong there anymore. Then I walked away. That night, back at the hotel, I poured a drink, loosened my collar, and looked out over the city that used to chew me up and spit me out. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even proud. I was free. She didn't give up after that. I thought she might. Thought maybe the hearing would be the last thread. That she'd walk away, cut her losses, disappear into another life that wasn't mine. But Samantha doesn't lose gracefully. Especially not when there's a second chance to spin the story. 2 days after the conference, I got a message. Then another. Then a string of them. At first they were polite. Professional. Really inspiring work. Would love to grab coffee and hear more about how you scaled. Then softer. You've grown into someone I always knew you could be. I wasn't ready back then. I see that now. Then personal. I made a mistake. I never stopped watching. Please just talk to me. The one that stopped me cold. A voice memo. I listened to it once. She was crying. The real, ugly kind. Saying she didn't recognize herself anymore. That Trevor had destroyed more than just his company. That she felt like she was paying for the choice she made that day she laughed at me. That she'd give anything to go back. The way she said my name in that message, like it still belonged to her, almost made me forget. Almost. Let me tell you something people rarely admit. Closure isn't a conversation. It's not a heart-to-heart or some late-night coffee where you both cry and say, what we had was real. Closure is choosing silence when you finally have the upper hand. It's hearing the apology and letting it hang in the air, unanswered. It's knowing that no matter what she says, no matter how honest she tries to sound, she still doesn't get it. Because this wasn't just about her leaving. It was about what she took with her when she walked out. I didn't reply. Not to the messages. Not to the calls. Not to the flowers she sent to the office. She kept trying. She started reaching out to people I knew. Old friends. Industry contacts. Even one of my employees invited her for lunch under the pretense of wanting to learn about our culture. That was the final straw. I called my assistant. Gave her one instruction. If Samantha ever tries to contact the company again, block her. If she shows up, call security. It felt cold. It also felt right. Then came the email. Subject line, one last thing. There was no manipulation this time. No flattery. Just this. You were right. I didn't believe in you. But you were never the one who needed my belief. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. You didn't deserve the way I left. I stared at it for a long time. Thought about replying. Even opened a draft. Typed out a paragraph. Deleted it. Closed the tab. Because I didn't need her to know how I felt anymore. She already knew. The last time I saw Samantha was 6 months later, by accident. I was leaving a meeting downtown, walking out of a cafe with one of our new advisors. She was across the street, standing outside an office building, phone in one hand, blazer draped over her shoulder. She saw me. She didn't wave. Didn't cross. Just stood there. Like she knew. Like she finally understood the version of me that she'd laughed at 5 years ago had never needed her permission to become real. And the version of her I once loved had disappeared the moment she laughed. I didn't tell anyone about the email. Not my team. Not my friends. Not my therapist. Some things don't need to be shared. Some things are better left as memories. Reminders of how far you've come. How deep you had to dig. How loud someone's laughter sounds when they don't think you'll ever be more than their footnote. But she's not my footnote. She's a cautionary tale. And me? I'm the one who made it. 3 months later, I was sitting in a podcast studio. Not some grainy Zoom interview. This was the show, the one that every founder, creator, and entrepreneur dreams of landing on. Millions of subscribers. Syndicated everywhere. You're not just building a brand when you're on that mic. You're writing your name into the room. The host was this ex-VC turned media guru guy. Sharp, unfiltered, the kind of interviewer who asked about your lowest moment before he asked about your revenue. And I was ready. He leaned forward, voice low and smooth. Let's talk about the early days. The stuff no one puts in the pitch deck. You ever think of giving up? I smiled. Every day. He laughed. No, but really. I'm not kidding, I said. There were nights I couldn't afford dinner and still paid for server costs. I've watched everything fall apart more times than I can count. But you don't stop building just because no one's clapping. He nodded, then hit me with it. And the people who didn't believe in you back then, what do you think they'd say now? I paused. This was it. The open door. The moment I could name her. Humiliate her. Rub her face in the dust she left me in. But I didn't. Because the truth is, I didn't need to. I leaned into the mic and said, calmly, they're not in the room anymore. That's what success really is. Not the money, not the spotlight. It's walking into the places they said you'd never reach and realizing you've outgrown even the need to prove it to them. The host went quiet for a second. Then he just whispered, damn. That clip went viral. Hundreds of thousands of shares. Comments full of people tagging their own versions of Samantha. Whole threads started from that line. They're not in the room anymore. People put it on merch. Someone made it a TikTok sound. It wasn't about her anymore. It was bigger. I don't know where Samantha is now. Last I heard, she left the city. Changed industries. Tried to rebrand herself. I wish her no harm. But I don't wish her well, either. I wish her distance. Because there's a special kind of peace in knowing the person who once laughed at your dream now has to live in a world where it came true without them. A few weeks after the podcast aired, I got a letter. Not a text, not an email. A real letter, in handwriting I recognized instantly. I didn't open it. I just held it for a minute, then dropped it in the trash. Because I didn't need to read it. I already knew what it would say. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care. She laughed when I told her I'd be something. 5 years later, the world clapped while she sat in the shadows. And me? I never had to say a word. Success spoke loud enough.